Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's nice to meet you all today. My name is Timothy. I am here at the Toledo Zoo Aquarium, where I'm going to be giving you guys a little tour today. We're going to be seeing lots of amazing animals, and since we've got a lot to see, I'll go ahead and get us started. And I'll go ahead and switch my camera around so you guys can see what I see. All right, so the first tank that we're going to be looking at is our Gulf of Mexico tank. Now, this is one of our saltwater tanks. There are two main types of aquatic habitats. There's saltwater and freshwater. And so saltwater, as you would expect, would be those habitats that have lots of salt. And so, yeah, you can see lots of animals in here that you probably recognize, like our cow-nosed stingrays, which are really, really cute. We also have a much bigger stingray. That's our southern stingray. That's bigger than I am. It's really big. We also have a spotted eagle ray who is up here. And you can see on the underside of the rays, you can see their little gills. So that's how fish are able to breathe underwater, is through their gills. In bony fish, it's on the side. In sharks, it's on the side. In rays, it's underneath their body. And they use those gills to breathe underwater. But animals that are not fish or some invertebrates don't have gills, so they have to sometimes go up to the top of the water to get a fresh breath of air. So that is our sea turtle over there. This is Tink, our green sea turtle. I love to show people Tink, not only because Tink is adorable, but Tink is also our rescue. And as our rescue, that means that they were born in the wild, but unfortunately they were injured. So they were hit by a boat and they aren't able to use their back legs anymore. So they wouldn't be able to survive in the wild, but they are able to survive in here in the aquarium. And we make sure that we give them all of the food and the right type of water that they need, make sure that's the right temperature. They have lots of friends in here. Both the rays and the keepers are friends of Tink's. And so they're able to live here, even though they wouldn't be able to live anywhere else. Now, we also, I mentioned this earlier, there's two main types of fish. There are bony fish, and those are fish that have skeletons like we do with really hard bones. But there's also cartilaginous fish. That's a very fancy term. Can you guys use your fingers and feel what your ear feels like? And maybe you can even bend your ear up and down and back and forth. Our ears are very bendy because they're made out of cartilage. Now, these fish, like the rays and the sharks, their skeletons, their entire skeletons are made out of cartilage as well. So that's why they're so bendy, and you can see it kind of looks like they're flapping wings because they've got really bendy skeletons. Now, does anybody have any questions about any of the fish or about Tink that live here in our Gulf of Mexico tank?
Why don't you raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll call on you so that you can ask it, okay? Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Do you have a question? Yes.
When did you rescue Tank?
How long has it been since you've had Tank? When did he rescued?
Oh, so yeah, Tink has actually been with us for, I believe, I think we're coming up on 10 years now. So we don't know their exact age because they were born in the wild. We know that they came to us when they were a little bit younger, but they weren't a newborn. So they're probably around 10 to 12 years old.
Excellent. We actually read an awesome story about a sea turtle named Yoshi that was rescued and re-released. Savannah, do you have a question?
Why are some types of stingrays so huge?
Why do stingrays get so big?
So the bigger stingrays are going to have different diets. So they eat much bigger food and they eat a lot more food, and they have to do that to get to this size. But different stingrays have different specializations. They fit a different niche. That's a very fancy word, but essentially what that means is you need to have some smaller ones to eat the small food, and you need to have less big ones to eat the big food. So you'll see way more, just like in this tank out in the wild, you'll see way more of the smaller types than you will of the big types.
Cool. All right, Henry, and then Trevi, you're gonna be the last for this round. Go ahead, Henry.
What is your first endangered animal?
What is our first endangered animal or most endangered?
I mean, which animal did you rescue first?
Oh, well, the
I bet a
first.
lot of the animals you have are things that were given to you that you didn't actually rescue.
So most of the animals that you're going to see in a zoo are born in a zoo, because we don't want to take animals out of the wild if they're healthy. The only reason we want to take animals out of the wild is if they need to be rescued, like Tink, or if they're about to go extinct and they need to be bred in a zoo. But to answer the question as to what was our first animal, the first animal at the Toledo Zoo over 100 years ago was a woodchuck. So that was the first one.
From.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
so
not endangered.
Question, and then we're gonna move on.
So what is this whole TED talk about?
Was this?
Did it talk?
Yes.
Oh, we're visiting the Toledo Zoo Aquarium.
Yes.
Sorry,
that's
Trevi
right.
came in late.
No worries. Yeah, we got a lot of tanks as well. So I'll go ahead and bring us to our next tank. Now, like I mentioned, there's two main types of exhibits. It's based off of the two main types of aquatic habitats. And the second one is our first freshwater tank. So all of our tanks are either freshwater or saltwater. And these fish cannot tolerate high amounts of salt. So we have lots of animals in here, including the biggest fish that we have in the aquarium. This is an arapaima. Arapaimas live in the Amazon rainforest, and they are very large fish, the biggest fish that you'll find in that rainforest. Now, as such a large fish, they need lots of oxygen. And like other fish, they do have gills that allow them to breathe oxygen through the water. But unlike some other fish, in fact, unlike most fish, the arapaima, oh, there's the pacu photobombing the arapaima. And there's a pacu photobombing another pacu. But yeah, so unlike some fish, the arapaima is going to be able to breathe air instead of just water. So when they need some extra oxygen, they will actually take their mouth up above the water and breathe some air from breathe some oxygen from the air. So they have a special organ that allows them to breathe both air and water. Now we have some turtles in here too. These guys are also going to be air breathers, just like any turtle is. And we got another fish down here, super cute. We've got a catfish who's got his face right up against the glass, so it's hard to see.
Never seen.
All right. Does anybody have any questions about our Amazon River tank?
This is awesome. Savannah, what is your question?
Why do they have so many turtles in some tanks?
I don't know. I think turtles are interesting. Why do you think?
Are very pretty.
They are beautiful. Do you have a lot of turtles, do you think?
No,
I would say, yeah, we have a decent amount of turtles. We have way more fish than we have turtles. It's just turtles are very recognizable, so lots of people will.
That is true, yes. Odin, do you have a question?
How long did you have that fish? Yeah.
These arapaimas have been with us for about 15 years. Yeah, so these guys, they can live maybe like another 10 or 15 years. So they're not young, but they're not towards the end of their life yet either.
Trevi, you have a question?
So what era did the arapaimas have been introduced?
Sorry, what was that?
What era have the arapaimas been introduced into?
What era?
Yeah,
You mean what time period or?
both.
Okay, yeah, so time period, arapaimas are a decently old species, so they're not the oldest species of fish in the fossil record that we'll see today, but they do date back to well before like the development of lots of primates.
Okay, Henry, last question.
We have 2 turtles at our house.
Oh, that's a comment, but that's cool. I bet they're not sea turtles though, are they? No.
They're like this big.
Cool.
All right, now we're going to start to walk into our entire aquarium. So we're going to go up this small little hallway. And as we come in here, we're going to see lots of amazing fish with interesting body shapes. So normally fish are going to be one of a couple of different types of shapes, but some fish have very different shapes like this one. Does anybody recognize this animal?
Seahorse.
Yeah, that's right. This is a seahorse. So this is a type of seahorse called a pot-bellied seahorse. And seahorses do have fins. They are fish, but their fins are very differently shaped. You can see they kind of have one fin that's easier to see on their back, and it kind of looks like a mane. And they're going to vibrate that when they need to move forward. But since they don't really have big fins, they are not the best at swimming, and that's why they like to use that special tail that they have. It's a prehensile tail, which means they can control how it moves. And so if they need to, they will wrap their tail around something to hold on so that they don't get carried away by the ocean current. Now, these guys are really interesting because they will mate for life, and they can recognize each other, not by how they look, but by how they sound. So when they move their skull, they make a little clicking noise. And each seahorse has a unique clicking noise. So they can recognize who's their best friend based off of that clicking noise.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that is one of our ocean animals. Now, over here, we have an even more recognizable animal. I'm sure that most of you guys knew what a seahorse was, but I bet that this next animal is even more recognizable. Does anybody recognize this animal? Yeah, that's right. This is a clownfish. So clownfish are incredibly recognizable animals due to their appearance in the films Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. And we have actually 2 animals in here because we do have the clownfish, but we also have the sea anemone. So this thing with all of the tendrils that you see, all of the tentacles, that is a sea anemone. So the sea anemone is a type of cnidaria. So those are animals that have little stinging cells along their body. And so all of the tentacles that you see are covered in stinging cells. So when most animals go through those tentacles, it'll hurt them a whole lot because they'll get stung thousands, maybe millions of times. But when the clownfish goes through there, they are not injured because the clownfish has a special coating of mucus all over its body. So when they move through, they do not get hurt. Now that gives them great protection because if any other animal wants to eat a clownfish, they're going to have to deal with the tentacles, and those tentacles give them a really good chance of surviving. Now, that being said, sometimes people wonder, does the sea anemone get anything from the relationship? And they do. It's actually the sea anemone is going to get some food from the clownfish. When the clownfish produces waste, the sea anemone will actually eat that waste, which is kind of gross, but very helpful for the sea anemone. All right, now over here to our last tank on this wall that we'll look at is a really cute eel. This is our only true eel in the aquarium. This is a garden eel. Now, spotted garden eels kind of look like little finger puppets. They're so tiny and funny looking. They like to spend their entire lives underneath the sand. So they will just rest under the sand because it's nice and safe there. And most animals aren't going to be able to get down and capture them. If they get scared, they'll just pull themselves completely in. But when they are hungry, they'll stick their heads out of the sand and look for tiny little things floating by, which we call plankton. And they will eat that plankton. So when food comes along, that's how they will eat it. Now, those guys are joined by another fish right here. Those are a type of fish called pipefish, and they kind of look like dead leaves. So they're a pretty cool fish as well. All right. So that was 3 tanks quickly in a row. Does anybody have any questions about any of those 3 tanks?
Henry, what's your question?
Well, it's not a question about dogs, but there's something by the shell, and it looks like a spider.
Oh yeah, I seen that.
In the aquarium, there's something that looks like a spider?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what a rock.
Yeah, you're right. We do have a little crab over there. So that is a crab that blends in with its surroundings, and it kind of makes it look a little bit more like a spider than it does a crab.
You're right, I did not notice that.
Never find their
Cindy, what's your question?
right now.
So, if you was to, like, somehow make a solution, like the mucus on the clownfish, and dip your finger, would you still be pricked by the sea anemone?
Ah, good question. So yeah, if you were somehow able to make like a synthetic mucus like that, it would actually protect you from the sting. Now we're gonna see one animal, if we're lucky, if we have enough time, we're gonna see one animal that has a really special mucus that is so special. The United States Navy has been spending lots of time and money trying to recreate it so that they can use it for different things. We'll talk about that in a second if we get to it. All right, I'm gonna take us now over to another tank to see another crab. And this crab is going to be much easier to see for everybody because this crab is much bigger. In fact, it's the largest crab in the world. Over here, we have our first deep sea creature, and these are giant Japanese spider crabs. They are not actually spiders, but they just have really long legs, so they kind of look like they're spiders. But these guys are crabs. They live deep in the ocean, and they are what we call decomposers. So they will eat all of the dead things that float to the bottom of the ocean. And they've got strong claws and mouth parts that allow them to do that. They're kind of fun to watch. They move slowly because there's lots of pressure pushing down on them. But they also have that strong armor, and that helps protect them, both from the pressure and from other animals. All right, any questions about anything that I might have missed?
Beverly, what was your question?
Why does he look like such a good crab cake?
What?
Why does he look like such a nice crab cake?
I don't know if he looks like a crab cake.
He does.
I don't know. Are you hungry?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, Odin, what's your question?
What do they eat?
Good question.
They eat dead things, and especially dead meat.
That's
So
right.
when animals die in the ocean, they float to the bottom. And when they float to the bottom, there's not just a huge pile of dead animals, because animals like the Japanese spider crab are going to take care of all of the bodies. So they will eat the dead meat.
Very useful.
Absolutely, yeah. They're kind of like the garbage men and women of the ocean. So they clean up even things as big as whales. They will go ahead and clean up the entire body of a whale.
Ashley, what's your question?
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Human bodies cannot do not stay floating up above the like kind of with the surface. Oh yeah, that is true.
I don't know. Those are interesting questions. Did you have a good question?
Why do the crab's heads look like seashells?
Oh. Is
Sorry,
there
what?
looking a bit like a shell?
But they all shells.
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, he said that their heads look a little bit like shells.
Oh, yeah, actually, that was their shell that kind of looks a little bit like a head. That's kind of funny. There's actually some old Japanese mythology about a crab whose the back of their shell was actually the face of a ghost. So yeah, so you're not the first person to think that.
Cool. Savannah, last question.
Why did one of the crabs that looked like it was making cake? Making a cake. He was holding it up like he was gonna make cakes.
Interesting observation. All right, where are we now?
So we are here with some more deep sea creatures, and we have a chain cat shark, or also known as a chain dogfish. Now, this is a type of shark that likes to live deep, deep underwater. And so they are very different than the sharks that you'll find swimming closer to the surface. These guys are not nearly as active. You may have heard some people say that sharks need to keep swimming to survive, and that is the case for some sharks, or rather more accurately, some sharks need to have water flowing over their gills to survive. And the easiest way to do that is to keep swimming. However, not all sharks follow that rule, including our chain cat sharks here, who are very sleepy sharks. They like to spend most of their time resting. And they don't have to worry about the oxygen flowing over their gills because their gills work very differently. Now, they are not the only animal in here. We also have somewhere in this tank a hagfish, which is actually the fish that I was talking about earlier. And technically, it's not even the same type of fish as anything we've seen so far, but they create a mucus. They will create a slime over their body that allows them to survive an attack from just about any animal. Animals like sharks might try to attack them, but they'll put that mucus on their body and it makes them completely unappetizing and very well defended. So that's the one. Oh, please don't tap on the glass, guys. Thank you. But that's the one that when a hagfish uses that, people got so interested. And so people have been spending lots of money to try and recreate that mucus so that they can create a bulletproof gel because it's that.
Very cool.
And then over here, if you'll excuse me, everybody, sorry, you might see some flashing lights. Do you guys see some flashing lights on your screen?
Yeah.
Light fishies.
Yeah, that's right. These are flashlight fish. So flashlight fish are a type of
That's
animal
right.
that has a symbiotic relationship with a species of bacteria. So they have a little pouch underneath their eye where they hold lots of bacteria. Those bacteria are bioluminescent. Here's a picture of what one of them looks like outside of the dark waters. So they live very deep in the ocean and they are able to communicate with each other using those flashes. So that's how they're able to talk to each other, let each other know where they are, what they're doing, and which way they're going. All right, now we're gonna head back out from the deep sea into some more closer to the surface waters, into what we would call the sunlight zone. And here is our biggest tank. This is our 90,000 gallon fish tank. So yeah, you might see the blue tang or the surgeon fish. Yeah, lots of people know it as dory. Yes, so that is actually a poisonous fish. So that bright blue color, it's very pretty, but it's also very noticeable. And so it's what we call an aposematic color. That's a really fancy term, but another way to call it is a warning color. So they have those bright colors to warn other animals to leave them alone because they're poisonous. We also have some sharks in here. We have some reef sharks. Those are black tip reef sharks. We also have, this one's really cute, a zebra shark. Now you might notice the zebra shark has spots instead of stripes, but when a zebra shark is a baby, it has stripes. So that's why they're called zebra sharks. So all of these fish live here together, and sometimes people get worried. They see all of the small fish like the soldier fish and the trigger fish and the unicorn fish with the bigger fish like the sharks, and they're worried that the sharks are going to eat the smaller fish. But we make sure that our sharks are well fed. Sharks don't like to kill things. They don't kill things for fun. They only do so when they're hungry. They'll have to hunt. But if we make sure that our sharks are well fed, they have no reason to attack the other fish. And so the other fish are perfectly safe in here. All right, does anybody have any questions about any of the fish in our 90,000 gallon tank?
I have a question about like fish that are in the deep water. Like, how do you get the fish from like the bottom of the ocean?
So again, we don't like to take animals out of the wild, but as for how somebody would, the ones that we have here at the zoo may be from the bottom of the ocean, but they're not as far down deep as we can go. So they're not from around the Challenger deep. So we didn't go to the absolute bottom, but there are parts of the ocean that are the bottom of the ocean that are higher than others. You guys may have heard of trenches. There are basically big canyons underwater. And so down there into those canyons, that's to the point where humans have a lot of trouble getting to. It's very, very difficult for a human to reach that deep. But it's not as difficult for humans to reach the bottom of the ocean and shallower parts of the ocean.
Jenny, do you have a question?
What do they drink?
Oh, do they drink?
Ooh, very good question. So all of the fish we have seen so far, yeah, fish do not drink. Yeah, fish will get their water intake the same way that they breathe, through their gills. So they do get water, but they don't drink like through their mouth like we do. It's a very good question. Now they still need water just like we do, and even if you somehow were able to give them air, if you didn't give them water, they would eventually die. But they are going. Oh, it looks like it's feeding time actually. If you saw all the fish. So all of these fish are going to get their water through breathing, not through drinking. Very good question.
Wendell, do you have a question?
How many sharks do you have?
So I don't know the exact number. I could probably do some math real quick. I think we have 5 reef sharks, 2 epaulet sharks, 1 zebra shark, 3 leopard sharks, 2 chain cat sharks, and a bonnethead shark, and
the whole aquarium.
That's what he's doing.
Yep, that's what I was saying, in the whole aquarium.
Counting all of them, yeah.
Yeah, but I forgot to actually add them up, so I'm not sure. More than 10, less than 30.
Oh, okay. Zane said that you listed 14.
No, it's 15.
15. Okay. Very good.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Sydney went. Yes. Last question. Last question for this. Okay. What's your comment?
The zebra shark's my favorite shark out of the whole aquarium.
They are very cool.
My personality.
Okay.
Awesome. So from these guys to something a little bit more, well, I would say simple. It's still definitely very interesting though. Just less developed, we have some sea jellies. So this sea jelly, or jellyfish as some people call them, isn't necessarily a fish, but it is a Pacific sea nettle. So sea nettles are a type of jelly that have really long tentacles. So those darker things that you see on the outside, those are tentacles. And then those frilly things that you see in the middle, those are arms. Those are what we call oral arms, and they use those to eat. Now, these guys have really, well, I was going to say big, but they're actually more a medium-sized jellyfish. So there are lots of jellies that are much, much smaller than them, but there are also jellies that are much bigger, including one that's so big we wouldn't be able to keep here. If you look on this wall, we actually have a picture of a lion's mane jelly. A lion's mane jelly can actually grow to be over 120 feet long. There's not an aquarium in the world that could hold that. But these guys are a pretty good size, so it's great to have them here. Now, they are actually related to the sea anemone that we saw earlier. So just like the sea anemone, they have all of those stinging cells that if you were to put your hand through there, it would sting a lot. And just like the sea anemone, there are some fish who are able to create a mucus coating so that they can live next to sea jellies without getting hurt. All right, now that is our sea jelly. And over here from the sea jelly, we're going to talk about one more cousin of the sea jelly and the sea anemone, and that is going to be our coral species. Sorry, these coral are one of the most amazing and important types of animals in the world. And there's lots of different types of coral. They come in different colors, different sizes, different shapes. And they have a really cool relationship with a type of algae that they keep within their body. That algae is photosynthetic. So it's like a plant in that it's able to get energy from the sun. But the coral lets the algae live inside of its body. So then it's able to take that energy and use some of it for itself. And it's able to get some energy from the sun, as well as energy from eating. So they're both a heterotroph and an autotroph. Those are fancy words, but essentially what that means is they get energy from the sun and energy from eating other things. All right, now I'm gonna do my best to show you guys this animal, but this animal is the master of camouflage and is sometimes very difficult to see, especially on video.
Oh, I see it.
Yep, there it is. Thankfully, it's got one of its arms out and about. This is our giant Pacific octopus. The giant Pacific octopus is one of the smartest animals in the aquarium, probably the smartest except for the humans that work here. But this guy is so intelligent. She is able to figure out puzzles. She's able to figure out how to play with toys. She's able to figure out how to open jars and latches, mazes. Basically anything that you give to an octopus, you give them enough time, there's a good chance they're going to be able to figure it out. Now this octopus, mini mantle, is adorable, but they are able to change color at will. So if they want to, they can be the exact same color as the thing that they're sitting on. So that is one of the main reasons that it's so difficult to see them, is because they can change their color, and they can even change the texture of their skin by squeezing different muscles to make them look either smooth or bumpy like the thing that they're sitting on. All right. Any questions about our octopus or the coral?
Janet, did you have a question?
I have a comment. I think I know. Hey.
Hank?
From
Oh,
Dory.
from Finding Dory, you're right. Okay, any questions? Yes, what's your question?
I have a question. Could an octopus solve a Rubik's Cube?
Ooh.
All the sides.
Interesting question. So here's the tricky thing. Would it be able to figure out a puzzle of that complexity? Maybe, but would it be able to figure out a Rubik's Cube? Probably not, because scientists believe that an octopus can't actually see color.
Oh.
So somehow they're able to tell what colors are around them so that they can camouflage with those colors, but it doesn't seem like they're able to process what each color is. At least that's what scientists believe.
Interesting. Question, Henry?
No.
Comment?
I
Nope.
have actually facts.
Okay, tell us one quickly, and then someone else maybe has a question.
That jellyfish don't actually have bones.
Is that right? They don't have any bones?
That's right. Yeah, they have no
Yeah.
bones. In
All
fact,
right. Do
neither
you
of
have
them
a
have bones.
question? Okay, what is your question?
What? We have a pond and we have more pictures.
You have a lot of creatures in your pond? Cool. Jenny, do you have a question?
What do they eat?
What does what eat? The octopus?
Yeah.
The octopus likes to eat meat. They'll eat mostly fish, but maybe some other animals like crabs or maybe smaller octopuses. Yeah, they are carnivores. All right, from one carnivore to another, this is a wolf eel. But you might remember I said we're only seeing one true eel today. So despite the name, this is actually not an eel. And if you look, you can actually see where they've got a fin right beside their head. They're just shaped like an eel, but they're not a true eel. Wolf eels are really cool though, because they are a type of fish that really likes humans. And so sometimes scuba divers will find these guys and they'll just kind of come over and meet them. They act a lot like a dog does around a human. So that's really cute. Now, the wolf eel is not the only animal that is scarier looking than it actually is. These are babies, but these are red-bellied piranhas. Piranhas are very famous animals. Lots of people are afraid of piranhas, but piranhas are actually not that dangerous. Piranhas might bite a person if you get close to them, especially if you maybe try to step on their nest. But most of the time, piranhas are going to try to swim away from you. Piranhas are afraid of people, and they also aren't that fierce of a predator. So they only eat small things. They'll eat insects that live in the water, maybe tiny fish, and especially they'll eat things like leaves and fruit. So they don't like to go after big animals, especially not humans, and they are not nearly as dangerous as people believe. They do have sharp teeth, and if one of them were to bite you, it would hurt, but they definitely don't hunt humans, and they aren't going to kill anybody.
Good to know.
Yeah, definitely no need to be afraid of the piranha. This one is just a really fun one to show. This is an Asian gourami. This is another type of fish that can breathe air on top of breathing water, and they have a really fun face.
Yeah, you can tell that he's a very fun guy.
His name is the kissy fish.
Yeah. And then one more not true eel, but this is an electric eel. all living things give off a small amount of bioelectricity, but electric eels give off so much bioelectricity that they're able to discharge it into the water. And when they do that, they're able to paralyze both prey and predators. So if they're trying to catch a fish, they might use that to paralyze the fish so that they can catch it easier. Or if maybe something like a human or a jaguar or a caiman comes after them, they might use that electricity to paralyze them so that they can swim away. It's a really amazing adaptation. All right, now last one on this wall of animals with superpowers is our, oh, he's got his head turned away. This is this is Luigi. Luigi is our alligator snapping turtle. Now, alligator snapping turtles have an incredibly powerful jaw, and they will use that jaw to snap down on things that get close to their mouth. So snapping turtles have a tongue that's shaped like a worm, and they'll sit very still, and fish will think that there's a worm that they can eat, and they'll swim over and they'll try to catch the worm, but in reality, the turtle is going to catch them. So that's why they stay so still. It's because they're trying to trick the fish around them into thinking they've got free food. All right. Does anybody have any questions about any of those animals with the superpowers that we talked about real quick?
Oh, an adult has a question. What was your question?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 now, a tortoise got out at the zoo. How did that happen?
Tortoise
I didn't know about that.
Oh, yes. So I did see about that happen. So it wasn't one of our tortoises, but yes, I did see that somebody's tortoise did escape.
Maybe
Sorry, what?
from the reptile house, perhaps, or?
No, it was. I'm not certain. It wasn't one of our tortoises.
Okay. Rabbit, you had a question?
So, how many watts does the electric eel produce?
I don't know about watts because I think watts measures. I don't remember the exact term, but it's not measured in watts. It's measured in volts, and I think it's around 200 to 400 volts. Depends on how big the species is.
Vanna, have a question?
Does the electric eel make you stay still long enough for it to leave very fastly or slow?
I think they're pretty fast, aren't they?
Yeah, they don't like to move too fast if they don't need to, but when they need to, they can jump out of the water pretty quickly, faster than a human can react at least.
Cool. Question, Henry?
It's not a question, but could I do my second fact?
All right, give us your second fact.
There's like zones in the water, and I can tell you too, it's the twilight zone, and then they have the sunlight zone. And if a fish is not in the right zone, it can drown.
That is true.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I mentioned the sunlight zone earlier, and yes, so some of the deeper sea animals would live in the midnight zone, but there's also the twilight zone, which is in between. Yeah. Now, this next animal is one of the most important animals in our entire zoo. We have a Lake Victoria cichlid. So this animal that you're seeing right now is technically extinct in the wild. So there are no more of this fish left in the wild, but the Toledo Zoo is working with Tanzanian conservationists to breed these fish so that we can release them back into the wild someday. So we've done that before with a Kahansi spray toad, which is another species from Tanzania. The Toledo Zoo works very closely with different Tanzanian conservationists to reintroduce species that have been hurt by colonization and urbanization of different areas. And so we're hoping to reintroduce this fish species back into the wild sometime in the near future.
Very cool.
All right, now I think we've got time for maybe one more tank, so I'll bring us over here and show you guys one of the most interesting animals, and that is our lungfish. So we've talked about how some fish are able to breathe air, not just water, but they still need to have water from time to time. But the lungfish is able to survive longer than most fish without water. How long do you guys think the lungfish is able to survive without water? Any guesses?
Just say
Maybe
it.
3 years.
3 years. That's a long time.
100 years.
Maybe in hours, maybe minutes.
1 day,
Hour.
5 minutes, 2 hours.
Half an hour.
All right, let's
So
hear the
those are all
answer.
good guesses, but it is actually about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, lungfishes will actually do this special thing where if there is no more water, like if there's a drought and there's not enough water, lungfish will actually burrow themselves into the dirt, and they will make a little cocoon for themselves out of their own mucus. So they will make a special cocoon, and then they'll lower their heart rate, they'll lower their brain activity, so that they just kind of stay still for a long time, even up to 5 years, until water comes again. And once it rains, then they'll be able to survive in the water once more. So they're a very amazing animal. Some lungfish are from South America, some lungfish are from Africa. So that's why they look a little different. They are different species here. All right, well, we are almost out of time. I definitely want to leave some time for maybe any final questions. So I'll go ahead and flip my camera around so I can see you guys again and see if there are any final questions that anybody has.
Okay, Henry, question?
On the longfish, when he was zooming into it, it looked like a cucumber or a zucchini.
That's interesting. Savannah, question?
What was that fish that looks like a goldfish that was yellow?
That last one.
Yeah, that's what we call an Asian arowana. They're also sometimes called the dragonfish because they kind of look like a dragon, and they've got 2 big whiskers.
I would say clean.
Savannah?
Don't you still have that big snapping turtle?
So that big snapping turtle, I believe, was moved to a different location, which can give it more space.
Ah, very good. Wendell?
How old is the snapping turtle you have?
We don't know actually, because that's another rescue. Our snapping turtle was actually, somebody was keeping them as a pet, and we were able to rescue them from that, give them a better
That's
home.
not a great idea.
It's not a great idea. You should not have a snapping turtle as a pet.
No.
But we were able to rescue them and give them a better home that's safer for them and safer for the people around them.
Very cool. Sydney?
Would the electric eel be able to paralyze a shark?
Not necessarily, only because the electric eel is a freshwater fish. So the shark would not be able to get to the freshwater fish in the first place, because it would die well before it got inland enough to find an electric eel in the Amazon.
Interesting. Jenny, question?
Which one is the dangerous animal?
What's the most dangerous one?
Ooh. Well, the most dangerous animal, I think we probably didn't see. The most dangerous aquatic animal that we have here at the zoo is actually something called a cone snail. Now, lots of people are like, a snail? How is a snail dangerous? This cone snail has a venom that scientists have never been able to figure out a cure for. So there is no cure to a cone snail's venom because it's super complex. So if you get bitten by one of our venomous snakes or lizards, we have an anti-venom that we can administer, and that can probably save your life. But if you get stung by a cone snail, its venom is so complex that we don't know how to treat it. So that's probably the most dangerous animal here.
Trevi?
So the glow in the fish, glow in the dark fish.
Yeah.
Is this nickname a traffic light?
Oh, that's a good nickname. I haven't heard them refer to that, but maybe I'll suggest that as a new nickname.
That sounds good. Savannah, do you have a last question?
Yes. Where did the big land snapping turtle got moved to? Because we've been wondering where he went every time we came.
It's to a different aquarium, so it's not here at the zoo. So I wouldn't be able to show you where it is here at the Toledo Zoo. I think it might be the Georgia Aquarium, but I'm not sure. It was to some aquarium that has more space than we do.
Okay, Henry, do you have one last question or a fact?
It's not a fact.
No? Okay. Can everybody say thank you for sharing all of the creatures from the aquarium?
Yeah.
This was an awesome visit, almost as awesome as actually going to the
Penguin.
aquarium.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we'll all get to go to the aquarium later this summer with your families, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I have one of them penguins?
I don't think they're giving them away, Odin, but
Yes,
thank you
they
for
are.
asking. So thank you so much.
So
We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. And thank you for coming, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and maybe I'll see you here in person sometime.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All